And it's now 7:02, so
7:02.
it's up to us. We wish to begin.
Okay. Hello. Welcome. Hi. Okay, Andrea, I think okay.
We'll start?
Yeah, let's, Marcel's here. Hi, Marcel.
Hey,
Hi.
can you guys hear me?
We
Oh,
can.
yeah, I'm on. Okay. I'll stop talking then.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, let's get started. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Kemba and I'm Andrea. We're looking forward to sharing with you some of what we've been doing over the years to build wealth, mostly for our family, and now teaching other families how to do the same. And so our presentation is rightfully so, building generational wealth through real estate. We've been principally using real estate as the means to build wealth for ourselves. And we know there's many other ways, but that's the way we're going to focus on tonight. This has been a passion project for Kemba and I in terms of the building generational wealth and focusing on it in Black History Month so that we can share with people like ourselves, minorities that, often don't have that extra edge. We're going to provide that to you tonight. And so if you haven't turned on your cameras yet and you feel comfortable, please do so. We would love to see your smiling faces. It's, as Kemba said, this is pretty much the way we're going to communicate for the next little while. This is our version of in-person. So let's begin. Kemba?
Okay, and as Andrea mentioned, I had a little reminder up in the corner, cameras on if you can, cell phones muted. And so tonight we're going to share just, we're introducing ourselves, a little bit about what generational wealth is and why we feel like it's important, how we go about and what you need to do to buy a property, and then more about building wealth from that one or two properties that you might own, and then some final remarks at the end and how to contact us if you need to. Simple and straightforward. Andrea?
Yes, so as I said, I'm Andrea, and I know that some of you we do know, and I do know you. But if you don't know me, I've been doing many things over the years. I was born in Jamaica, came to Canada, and have been living here pretty much all my life. So I would say I'm Canadian. I've been investing in real estate for over 25 years. I bought my first property when I was really young. And I've been always, it was always my passion and dream to do more. I really wanted to start even as young as a teenager, but I got to start just as I finished university at 22, and I've been doing it ever since then. I've done a lot of other things. I was a full-time school teacher before. I've fostered babies and children. I've established mentorship programs for young athletes. Through many things that my kids have done. I've been doing financial services, real estate investing, and so pretty much a variety of things that really has taught me how to be creative, be an entrepreneur, and of course, as I started building my family with my husband, Dean, we decided that we had to find another way to build wealth because our jobs weren't going to be the tool that we could utilize. Because I'm sure you're like we were, where even if we were saving our 10%, like they said, it wasn't accomplishing a lot year after year. And so we wanted another way to speed up that process, and real estate was that tool for us. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit about me. And Kemba and I have joined forces building Keen, and we've come together as family. We're both married into the same family. Our husbands are brothers. And so it's really and truly a family business, and we're excited to work together and share that with you. So Kemba,
yes,
add to that.
Yes, and so as Andrea said, we've been working together now for while, and I myself have not a completely opposite story to you, Andrea, but you know,
Mhm.
I was born here, funny enough, and I went back to the Caribbean to grow up, which is maybe the reverse of many people. My parents had had enough and they wanted to move back, and they're still living there actually now. I came back to go to university, where I went to the University of Western Ontario. I got a BA in HR and business, and I've worked in financial services from there, mainly in operations and project management, communications, and in the back office, you would call it, of the bank. Um, I've since I can't say retired, but I've left that, and I'm now full time with Keen, because I think that this is, as Andrea said, it's a passion project, and it's been amazing so far. I'm married to Michael. We have 3 kids, and I started buying rental property in 2007, and I haven't stopped since. So it's really a great way to build wealth. It's a great way to build generational wealth. And so hopefully what we share tonight will help you on your journey. And that's a little bit about me. And so today, I think you're all here to build a better tomorrow. You want to find out how it's done, and so we're just sharing some of the strategies we've used, and just strategies in general that will help you to learn more and build your own wealth. So Andrea, I think you're going to cover.
Yes. So what is generational wealth? I would love for first you to think about in your head, how would you define it? And as you're thinking about how to define it, I'll give you what I believe and what I think you would probably likely say is generational wealth. So, really, for the most part, I would agree, and I think you would agree, that it's the financial resources that we're able to pass on from one generation to the next, typically in the form of family wealth or legacy wealth to our children, grandchildren. It's, it could be also passing on knowledge, businesses, but in general, it's that financial wealth that you've accumulated over your life that you are now sharing with the next generation. In order to build that generational wealth, I think, like any trip or any aspiration that you have to plan, right? And to have that plan, I would highly encourage, and I've always, been more successful at accomplishing something that I've written down than something that I just kept in my head. You can write it down, share it with someone, and then carry it out. You can carry it out in a number of ways, especially when we're talking about building wealth, using various vehicles such as investing in stocks or real estate, like we're going to cover tonight, or building a business. I mean, many of us are very multi-talented or faceted, and we can do our jobs as well as a side hustle. And so building that side hustle or that family business that can then be transferred to your children is an excellent way to pass on generational wealth. Along with passing that financial wealth or that business on, you want to make sure that you plan not just the written plan at the start, but at the end, which is you're ensuring that you have a valid will in place, to make sure that what it is that you want, your intentions are carried out, and that the people and individuals that you want to have access to that has it as well, because there's always taxation at the end of everything. It's really important to have life insurance or some sort of plan for taking care of the taxes that that happens when you transfer wealth, right? Otherwise, the assets that you build are depleted easily with the government's hand in your pocket, so to speak. So that's what generational wealth is, and making sure that you plan from start to finish.
Mm-hmm. And so why we feel it's important, and why we want to talk about generational wealth. And Andrea and I have had many conversations about the fact that, as families, we don't necessarily talk enough to, our parents didn't talk to us enough about money and saving and how to build wealth. And in general, we don't have enough conversation in our community about it. So this slide is just talking a little bit about part of building wealth, and that's our income, because as we see this is a stat from Toronto, this is Canadian stats, and in general, men and women, Black men and women, are behind in earnings. And we'll see the next slide, which sort of illustrates how where we stand in general over the population. So this slide really speaks to the fact that we as women, Black and white women across the board, are earning less money. But for, us as a community, Black people, we earn less, men and women, we earn less than, say, white men. And so that's already a step back for us in our ability to build wealth, because we're not starting out on an even playing field from a day-to-day earnings perspective. So we need to think strategically, we need to think about how we're going to build that wealth, and we need to take the steps that were required, because we have to work even harder from earning less income to do so. Andrea, did I miss anything in that?
No, I think that's really good, because what I was going to add to that as you go to the next slide is, despite, like you're saying, you might think, but Andrea, we've done so much in terms of improving ourselves, and we've done all the education. We even have the same, in many cases, the same designations as our counterparts, and yet still we are earning less and we're getting less opportunities in our places of employment. So despite all our gains, we still aren't earning equivalent. And so with that dollar challenge, it makes all aspects of our lives more challenging. And that's why, we've chosen real estate as the means to sort of help combat that challenge. So I showed you generational wealth, and I talked about building it to pass it on. Well, I think it's fair to say, if I did a survey tonight, most of you would probably fall very similar to this stat, which shows that 7% of us, that is Black people or people of color, will likely receive some sort of inheritance. On the other hand, we have 36% of our white counterparts that are expecting it and are likely to receive. So I know that for myself personally, I don't have and won't be expecting any inheritance of any substantial nature. So I want to change that. I want to make sure that I build it differently for my children. Like Kemba said, our families don't talk and they didn't share enough with us. And so even our children are finding themselves challenged, so that the stats show that 65% of Black youth 15 years and older, compared to 48% of white children, find that they learn after the fact, like after something challenging or difficult has occurred. And we want to change that. We want to spend more time communicating and sharing with them. And especially if we're building wealth that we want to transfer to them, we want to make sure that they understand what we've done and what it is that we're trying to accomplish, not just for them, but for our grandchildren and generations thereafter. So having said that, some of the stats may have sounded depressing. We did not bring you here to depress you tonight. Our goal is to make sure that we motivate and instill in you some inspiration to go out and change these statistics. And so we can easily do that, because experts and many people that have built wealth through real estate shows that anyone that builds wealth through real estate tends to become a millionaire. 9 out of 10 of us tonight, I would rather say all of us tonight that is here, are likely to become millionaires if we do use what we teach you tonight to build wealth through real estate. And so when those stats are so high, our chances of success is very great. Another factor is that if you own, the documented stat shows that you will have 2 times more income than someone who's a non-owner. So homeowners tend to build greater wealth. And you can research that, because for anything that we share tonight or anything that you want to accomplish and do in life, it's always good to verify it with data before you proceed. But those are the stats there. We've shared some of the ones that work against us, but we're sharing with some of the stats that also can work in our favor, and that's real estate. So, and to add to that, there are many benefits of real estate. I mean, you can read them here, and we're going to cover some of them
I
tonight.
think you could wash out that conditioner. Are you here now?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to clean up my hair. Someone's not muted, Kemba. So there are many benefits to real estate. I mean, some of the most obvious, like you can live in the house that you buy, right? Or that you can provide a shelter or a home for someone else if you're renting it. But some of the ones that we'll cover and focus a little bit more on includes leverageable, appreciable, cash flow, which is very, it's pretty much one of the ways that you can retire your job and build a business through real estate. We'll also speak to passive and active income. Some of you may actually have come here with the intentions to buy additional real estate so that you want to be either managing them or taking on a property manager to do that, and that's active real estate properties. There are many of us, myself included, I have both passive and active. So the passive means that I just take some of my money that I've accumulated over time and put it and invest it in real estate. But I don't have to manage those properties. I don't have to oversee the tenancies and the runnings of that. And that's another excellent way to earn double-digit return on your money, right? Rather than leaving it at a bank. So, Kemba, we can keep going. I'm going to cover some of these, as I said, as we go through our presentation.
Sure.
So far, do we have any questions that we can cover? And feel free to put your questions in the chat box. We will check from time to time to see if we can understand, help you understand some of what we've said.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So buying a property, what do you need?
Yes, stay tuned. If you joined us before, someone's asked, should I stay on? Absolutely. I can hear something 3-4 times. I can read the same book multiple times and learn something different and new every time.
Yes. So guys, to buy a property, I think the best place to start is to start by, well, there's a couple of places you can start, but when you think of it, you have to have a team of people helping you along the way, and having the resources, meaning your pre-purchase partners, your realtor and mortgage broker. During the purchase, you need certain partners, home inspectors, realtors, the bank, your contractor. And then after your purchase, you need other partners. And so that's property managers, accountants, electricians, contractors, people who will help you manage and maintain that property and maintain the value in that property. And through that, you can have someone who's coaching you or someone who's helping you along, because there will be many questions that come up along the way to say, what do I do in this instance? Is this a good property? Is this not a good property? How does this work? How does that work? Is this a good decision, or is that? So having a strong team of people around you who can advise you, who can help you, who can make sure that you're making good, sound decisions. There's risk in real estate investing. By no means is there no risk. And so to mitigate and to lower that risk, you work with people who know what they're doing and who can provide you good, solid advice, not just, I want to make a sale, but this is what's in your best interest. If you're going to go forward, know the risk, and then make an informed decision. So build a team, know who you should have in your corner. I'm not sure, it's not moving. Andrea?
It's frozen.
Okay.
Okay, let's see if there's any questions here.
So, anything? So while we wait for questions.
Okay, so yeah, I just see someone's asked, what type of lawyer do you need for purchasing a property? I would say someone who's an expert in real estate law for sure. And I wouldn't, like, the person who does my will can sometimes be a real estate lawyer, but sometimes the person who would do your divorce proceeding or some other legal matter that's totally unrelated to real estate has doesn't have the skill set and the knowledge and the expertise and experience over time that you need from a lawyer, right? You don't want to, like Kemba said, there's risks involved. You want to make sure that that expert that you're going to and paying, those dollars to, sometimes thousands of dollars, knows what they're doing and have done it many times over.
Yes. And as even in the realm of lawyers and real estate lawyers, there will be, you know, another tier in terms of lawyers where once you start investing and you have different types of deals you're looking at and so on, you may want a very investor focused lawyer to help you because they may have more breadth of knowledge in the area of investing. For a first purchase, a real estate lawyer is who knows his stuff is a great way to start. And then you progress to finding ones who are more expert in, say, investing.
Yeah, because if it's your principal residence, sometimes that lawyer is limited and their knowledge and expertise, I agree, Kemba, wouldn't be the same as someone who understands an investor mindset and focus.
Yes.
The other question I see here in the chat is, does your mortgage come from the bank? And I assume you're asking in general if that's, because I definitely have some mortgages through the bank, but not all the mortgages that I have on properties are all through the 5 major banks that you are often thinking of. There are many other institutions that offer mortgages outside of banks. Okay, so it's a good question, and you can get approved through other lenders and other institutions or mortgage brokers rather than just a bank.
For sure.
So good question.
What do you need to get approved? So to get approved, you need to have 3 things, really, 3 major building blocks. There will be other things, and the property that you're looking at will also come into play. But from your own standpoint, like when you're going across the board to look at property, you need to look at credit, the capital you have to invest, and your income, because that's what the bank will do. They'll want to qualify you, what's good credit. So there's many tiers of credit, and as Andrea was just mentioning, you know, depending on who you're getting your mortgage from, they'll have different criteria of what they expect to see for your credit score. We're suggesting 750, but that varies, and you could have a lower score and still qualify depending on the institution you're working with. If you feel like you have credit that you want to improve, though, it doesn't take that long. You can start improving your credit in 1 to 2 months. You just have to do the right things to improve that credit, and you'll get to that goal pretty quickly. But it's an important pillar to getting a qualification done. Your capital would be your savings, any lines of credit you have. If you have borrowed funds, usually from friends and family, that can also be there. There are also programs, municipal and federal programs, that may help you with a down payment, especially if you're a first-time buyer. There's TFSAs and RSPs that you can also use to as your capital to get towards a down payment for a property. Income, so the bank looks at, or any lending institution looks at, the ability of either the property or yourself to repay the loan. So the income of the property, meaning, are you going to be having tenants? Okay, so that's income you're going to come in, that's going to help you qualify. And then your own personal income, employment or business, any investment income that you have, and they're looking usually for a consistency of that income. So they're looking at least 2 years. So that's really the overarching things that you need to bring together to get an approval done.
Okay, so Kemba, I have another question, and I think it's more than one part, but it says, if you get a property or for investment purposes, let's say I buy and get a mortgage, after a few months, I want to sell it, right? So they've got it, they want to sell it now. How does the broker or the bank get the mortgage back? Well, and should I, or will I pay more interest for them? So I think this is it's not clear and straight, but really, if you buy today and 3 to 4 months later you want to sell it, I hope you've got a variable mortgage, because you will be paying a hefty fine to the bank or the financial institution that you owe. Because they typically, if they fix the mortgage for 5 years, they're expecting their money over that 5 years. And even if you choose to leave in a few months, you're still expected to pay the interest payments for that duration of that 5 years. Mm-hmm. Right, Kemba? I think that's what they're asking.
That's correct. Like
if you chose to take a variable, like I've often done in the past with some of the products that I owe, I would then be expected to only pay 3 months interest, because that variable mortgage gives me an out. But typically in variables, it can be the case that it may be higher rate than a fixed. But all the other things that you're asking, it depends on the scenario. But in general, you owe what is you've committed, because it's a contract that you've committed to for the duration of the time. Or in the case of a variable, it would be at least the 3 months in most institutions.
Yeah.
How long is the approval process? How long will it take you to get together all your documents, and how clean and easy are they for the institution? I mean, an approval for just I think for a principal residence that you're going to move into can be fairly quick and fast within weeks to, 2 weeks. I think I've seen it happen in 14 days. However, if you're buying a multi-family residential unit, Kemba, it's fair to say that could be weeks to months.
Yeah, so it really depends on the situation. And to be honest, now with COVID, I would add a plus to that in terms of time to get approved. The institutions are always currently saying, make sure you get to us ahead of time.
And start as quickly as possible.
Yeah, start as quickly as possible, not impact.
As quickly as possible. Yeah, because I honestly, even when I start quickly and early, sometimes we're down to the last day or two and they're still not finished everything. And that can be very costly to all parties, mostly to me. The odd time it may cost another institution, but they put it back on me. Can you pay, how long is it? Can you pay advancement on your mortgage? Absolutely, you can pay additionally. That's an option to negotiate in your agreement. Oftentimes, would you say somewhere from 10 to 20% they allow you annually, up to doubling up your payments monthly. It all depends on what you've negotiated or the conditions that you've been approved for.
So Andrea, and to the point of what you've negotiated in general, especially when you work with a broker, you can sort of outline some of the things you want, and then they'll go for the financial institution that will provide that. Generally, if a financial institution is saying, here's the mortgage I'm providing you, you can't really negotiate the terms of that specific mortgage. But if you look at mortgages across multiple companies, they'll have different terms, and then you can find the one that is what you are looking for.
And if you're shopping with a mortgage broker, I agree, Kemba, the mortgage broker would help you do that. To go about from bank to bank and do that, it could cost you, because that requires your credit being used each time. Yeah. So some of these questions, I think, let's keep going, because I think the next one we can answer in our presentation. But improving your credit is definitely, like Kemba said, it's not too challenging and too difficult. You can do it fairly quickly. First of all, paying regular, paying on time, paying the prescribed amount, or at least the minimum amount. If you pay in full, that's great. If you can't pay in full and you pay the minimum, that's also suitable. If you can't pay at all, like during COVID, better you call and reach out to that institution and negotiate some terms and options, so that you don't get, that report on your bureau that shows that you're being negligent. And it is fairly easy to maintain your history. If you have history that is long-standing, a card or a visa, or some kind of business with one of your providers, keep it. The longer you have it, the better it is on your bureau, and try to reduce the amount of times that you're applying for and reaching out for credit, because that also affects your score. Having good credit is very important. It's not just important for your real estate purchases. It's important for going for insurance. It's important for possibly getting approved for a mobile phone. There's just so many times that you need a good credit score, that it's not just for the purchase of a home or a large purchase like a car.
Mm-hmm. Yes, protect your credit.
And check it regular. Let's keep going. I'm going to answer the next question in our presentation with respect to how much you need to put down.
So we kind of said it a little bit, but not every property is a good property to buy. So there are things that you should consider as you look for investment property, or even your primary first purchase. You should consider thinking of it like an investment, and make good decisions. So one, it appreciates well, and it's good to sell at the other end when you're ready to sell it or refinance it, whatever. But it's a property that will bring value to you, versus just a property. I love it. and it doesn't sell well, or it's not a good property. So important factors to consider would be location, your down payment and closing costs, how much you need for that. And so someone's question in the chat was how much you need for down payment. For a first-time buyer, usually it's 5%. For an investor who already owns property, that would be 20%. Closing costs vary in different locations. So downtown, anything in Toronto will have an extra charge on it. Anything outside of Toronto would be just one land transfer tax. So that's a little bit less. And then other areas like provinces like Alberta have even less because there is no land transfer tax. So it really varies about where you're buying the property, what your closing costs will look like. And also if the property is new or resale, that also impacts the closing costs. Buy on logic, as I mentioned, not just on emotion. So make sure you're thinking about it as an investment, whether or not you're going to live in it or not. Think of it as an investment. Have an exit plan. So buying a property, so the person who mentioned buying a property and maybe selling it in 3 months, in general, real estate is not a quick turnover like that unless you're adding value by renovating or improving the property somehow to bump up the price and then sell it quickly. That's an option. Or sometimes in pre-construction where you've held it for some time and then you sell it just before the end. But always know your exit plan. And usually it's not going to be a quick turnaround when you're buying a property that doesn't have improvements right there. Know the risks of what you're going to do. So don't let them tie you up or prevent you, but know the risks. And then also make sure you plan for your cost of running or keeping the property. So what are your fixed and variable costs, like utilities, taxes, that sort of thing. Andrea, why don't we go into a little more about buying your first property?
Okay, so the question was, the down payment and CMHC are two questions I see in the chat. And so this, I think we can answer them here, Kemba. I think that if you are, fortunate to be gifted and or come into a large sum of money, say 100,000, it's, this part of the presentation is just showing how you can put that 100,000 to work. So if you were fortunate and you were a first-time buyer, like Kemba said, you have 5% is what is required for the deposit on your first purchase. And so I use the amount 500,000 for a number of reasons. One, 500,000 I think is probably the top I would spend on a 5% purchase as a first-time buyer, as well as it's probably pretty much the entry point for a property in and not too far off from the GTA area, because let's be real, most of the prices are pretty high today. And so when I use that, say you were pre-approved and you could get qualified for that type of purchase, a $500,000, and you have to come up with the down payment. 5% of that is 25,000. Like we said, the closing cost will vary slightly depending on where you are, but typically it's going to be somewhere between 12 to 15,000. So you can expect that on your first purchase, you're going to put in about 40,000 to buy as a first-time buyer. And yes, the CMHC would be required on a purchase less than 20%, right? So for any purchase that is below the standard, which is 20%, you're going to have that mortgage insured. And that's who CMHC is. They are insuring the mortgage with the bank or the institution to protect against, the potential default of the buyer. And so really CMHC is it could be a good way to help you sort of get into the market, because many of us wouldn't have the 20% as a first-time buyer, and plus the government allows us that option. Would you add anything to that, Kemba, for the CMHC? Just here.
No, it's the insurance. If the government's going to back your mortgage to make sure that, so it's an incentive for the bank to give you a mortgage, and so they protect the bank's interest, and so therefore they're willing to lend to you, and you pay a premium to have that. It's an insurance. It's just an insurance that if you
and it gets you started, right? So it's not a bad thing. It's a good way to begin, because for many of us, as I said, coming up with more than the 5% is often challenging as our for the first purchase.
Yeah.
So here you bought, you know, I like to show what it looks like, your purchase of 500,000 after 5 years. I mean, really nice improvement. If we've only used a 5% return, we're going to show you soon that 5% in the GTA or in Toronto it's nothing. It's actually it's quite a bit more. On average, you're earning double-digit returns, but to be reasonable and conservative, you know, across all markets and different areas, you'll now have in 5 years 638,000 in value, as well as the fact that that property has probably been paid down. If you were living in it, you've been, you know, sort of paying the mortgage, and so the amounts is, you know, your appreciation and your value on your property over time is substantial. The other 60,000 that you still have of that 100,000 can be utilized either, you know, within the next year or so, or you can put it off to the future. But another way to put that difference to work for you, if you're trying to build wealth like we're talking about, is to maybe find a partner, find 2 or 3 partners, joint venture with someone. So as a first-time investor now, you're not putting just the 5%, it's now 20%. So someone asked what a percentage. The percentage as a investor or someone who's already purchased before now becomes a minimum of 20% to have that. And so when we look at the last example here, the joint venture, where you might choose to buy a multi-unit, which is an excellent way to invest when you're doing it with 3 or 4 other individuals. You buy $1 million, say, multi-unit, maybe a 3 or 5 unit building, and you put in the down payment of 20%, 200,000, closing costs of approximately 30,000, and you have split that, say 3 ways, 4 ways, depending on who you've partnered with. Your 60,000 that you still had left over is going into this deal, and so too are your partners putting in, and now you've been able to buy a second property, or you now have a second property to your name. You could easily do this on your own if you want to as well, by waiting the 5-year term on your first purchase and pulling that money out from your property that you own, and you have, like we've already showed you, 600, it's worth 638. You've probably got almost 170,000 in there, so you could pull out the difference to finance this deal and do it on your own as well. The banks do allow you to do that, and it's an excellent way to get building and multiplying the wealth building process for yourself. So
one caveat, Andrea, that I'll add to that is that if you decide to wait to buy real estate and you're thinking, okay, this 6-unit property is $1 million, and I'm going to wait till my equity builds up in 5 years to buy this $1 million property, that $1 million property is likely to be 1.2, 1.3.
Well, that's what we showed. So in 5 years' time, the value of that property has definitely gone up, and it may even be greater than what I'm showing if we're in the GTA, because I'm only showing a 5% increase on your money, on your investment. But I agree, Kemba, we're saying buy now, buy today, don't wait. I'm only showing you how to get 2 properties with the with 100,000 as your starting point. Now, someone's asked, what is the closing cost? Well, the closing cost, I know it's those costs that you don't think about besides your deposit. It's paying for your lawyers, it's paying for the land transfer and all the taxation and all these, like the subdivision. If it's a new division, you have to pay for the trees and the schools, and everything is being pinned back to you, the purchaser. And that's what closing costs are. And I'll tell you that I know what it's like to do it in Toronto, because I just did it last year for the first time ever in my real estate journey. And it was very pricey and expensive. So it was nowhere near 30,000. It was a lot more. So closing costs is another, and sometimes it can exceed your down payment if you're a first-time buyer, depending on the amounts that you're putting in. Because I had to pay double taxes, I had to pay the lawyers, you have to sometimes pay HST if you're not moving into that property. And I think the HST on that property alone was going to be 25,000. Mm-hmm. So good questions, because it's not stuff that we often think about. And what does CMHC, so I'm sorry, I'm not sure, and what does CMHC do? Well, CMHC is the insurer for the mortgages that fall under below the 20% down, which is the standard that the banks have. Okay, so to build on that, really, I think, because our goal is to show you how to build wealth and to build assets. And you can do that. If you already own, you're already building wealth. And to use what you've already built up in your property is an excellent way to get the capital that you need to buy additionally, or maybe even to help your children buy. Because someone's question is it a good idea to invest in pre-construction condos? Absolutely. It can be an excellent tool to investing in real estate. Now, buying in condos in general right now, Kemba and I would both agree that it's an excellent place to buy in Toronto, especially because the prices are down. And we know that that market won't stay down. It will come back in the years to come following COVID. So with your HELOC or with your home equity line of credit, so you have a home, you've built up a lot of equity in it, you can take some of that, say $100,000, and start using it to invest by purchasing additionally, buying a rental property or two, or you can use it to invest alternatively. We encourage you to do it on your own if you can, but to jointly invest with members of your family or friends or people that you know and trust well, as long as you put in place the proper legal agreements to protect all parties. And of course, you know, we show here too, not just investing in real estate and using your equity to invest, but every time you put your equity to work, your equity can pay you as well, instead of just leaving it at the bank or with the institution that you owe or have that product with. Now you can start to, on your first rental property, potentially getting $1,000 a month. Maybe on your second, you're getting another $650. And all of a sudden you have two properties bringing in, you know, $1,650. That's fantastic. You can also take that money and invest it as well, or use it, Kemba. Next slide. To pay the bills and the amounts that you've pulled out of your property. Because if you've taken equity out of your property, it's still, there's an expectation that you're going to pay some of that back or pay it down, because you are paying interest on it. It's an excellent way to build wealth. It's an excellent, very low cost interest rate as well. But you have to be mindful that it needs to be paid back, as well as any other bills that you're accumulating or have accrued over time as you're building wealth. So in the essence of time, Kemba, and answering questions, I think we could move on. Now, let me see if I answered. We bought our first property. We bought our first property 1.5 years ago when we started thinking about taking out a HELOC. So oftentimes you can build up a HELOC fairly quickly, but a year and a half in, it may not have accumulated enough. It typically is around, I think, about 3 years that you can have a sizable enough that you can pull and have a home equity line of credit. But you never know. Oftentimes, depending on your down payment, what you've put in and the appreciation, the bank is willing to work with you. So you can always look at that.
It's also,
I love these numbers. Sorry?
It's also dependent on what you selected to begin with. So if you're in a fixed rate mortgage or fixed mortgage, the likelihood is it makes more sense to wait until you're at the end of that. So if it's a 3-year fixed or a 5-year fixed, it's better to wait till you come to
I think you can negotiate it though at the outset if you have some room in it. You know, it just depends on where you're at and what you have already. I find that the banks, and like we said, from each institution, they'll look at you as an individual and what you're doing and what you're able to offer them, right? So you can wait, or you can see, or you can negotiate it, Kemba, at the outset, depending on the mortgage that you're establishing.
For sure.
So with Toronto, with the GTA, if you're in the GTA or the Toronto area, and like ourselves, you bought in the last 10 years, you've done phenomenally, because we are looking here at a 10-year period from 2011 to 2021. In every area of real estate, from single residential homes detached to condos, you've improved your property value and your property return to you. It's well over 200,000 in every single case. And I think it's fair to say that you probably can see and hear what's going on, the buzz. Single residential homes in Toronto are selling, and probably on average right now, you're looking at homes well over $1 million or if they're at the $1 million mark, you know you've got a bit of work and TLC to put in to get that property to either be livable for you or to be something that you can make livable for someone else.
Mhm.
So real estate is an excellent way. I mean, the first example from 450 10 years ago to currently 1.2 mil, you've done well. So ourselves included, we've been invested in real estate for quite some time. And so we did the 10-year challenge for ourselves. And when we look at 2 properties that we have locally here in the Peel region area, that those properties have also showed that they have surpassed the 200% return as well on those properties. This is great if you're in the market already. It shows you what you have access to for equity to reinvest or wealth that you've built and been able to accumulate. But it makes it very challenging for the newest person coming into the market, because we all know that it's not easy to get into the market at 1.25 mil, even with a 5% down, which is not really, it's not currently allowed. Once you get to a $500,000, you're pretty much going to be bumping up the amount that you have to put down, even as a first-time buyer. Okay, so there's lots of ways to build wealth using your current property, using the current equity that you have accumulated in those properties. So for me, for Kemba, and for any of you, I would highly urge you to find a way to work with your institution to get that home equity line of credit. You can get 100,000 when you've got, what is that? Well over $500,000 in equity. They're more than willing to offer you that 100,000 so that you can now turn it into other assets that can bear and build wealth for you and your family, or you and your children.
Mhm.
So, and you know, do we have some time to show some of it, Kemba? So in terms of active, active is where you are buying the property and you are potentially property managing or finding a property manager to take care of it. If you are more interested in having your money just put to work and you don't necessarily want to be tenanting and managing a property, or even, you know, doing any of that, you can definitely invest in real estate holdings through mortgages, through trusts like real estate trusts and land. There's multiple ways to put your money to work and get your double-digit returns on that equity as well. So you can use the equity actively, passively, or even buying something like an apartment building, a multi-unit, where you can, again, do it jointly like I showed you before. And you can do it with experienced individuals too, because I don't think I would have bought a multi-unit as my very first unit. I didn't know and have enough knowledge then, but today with the knowledge base and the experience that I have, I feel much more comfortable investing as many in as many multi-units as I can. So
Mhm.
Kemba, if you want to add to that, I'm just going to check if there's any questions.
So, no, I
Yeah,
think,
you can go ahead, Kemba, and I'll look at the questions as you begin. I would show the video as well of that
yeah. So
multi-unit.
when you're looking at investment, whether it's your own property or there's a way to look at the numbers. So you want to just make sure you're looking at the whole investment. So some of the major things you have to look at in your analysis of the numbers would be, what's the passive appreciation in this rate in this area? This property we're showing you right now is a multi-unit. It's a 6-unit building in London, and this is one we invested in 2019. So we've had it a little while now. When we acquired it, it was 800,000. So we looked at how is this property going to appreciate over time. We only used a 2% appreciation rate, which means that we're saying year after year after year, the value of this property is only going to grow by 2%. The market has done much better than that. But it's still important to look at your numbers conservatively to say, is this going to make sense? From a cash flow perspective, this is, we look at what are the rents? What will they cover all the expenses? And is there any money left over? That money left over is the cash flow. And then how much is going into the pay down of the mortgage every year? about $14,000 is going into, and that increases incrementally every year. So that's even more value that you're looking at there. And if you're able to acquire the property under value or do something to maybe improve it, like increase the unit, then basically you have active appreciation, because that just forces up the value of the property right away. So to the question that was like, can I get a home equity line of credit in a year and a half? If you've added something to the property that increases the value significantly, it's likely that yes, you can get a line of credit that is more in a shorter space of time. So yes, it's possible. You just have to do the right things to get there.
And to answer the question, is there a way to get involved in real estate investing in smaller amounts? Yes. With the real estate trust, the REITs, that we didn't spend time on, you can always speak to us separately about that, but there is definitely, the real estate trust is an excellent way. It would be something similar to investing in buildings like this through a trust fund that gives you the opportunity to earn the returns that cash flow, equity, appreciation, all of those these values that we speak to here in this example. So you don't have to start at 200,000 or 100,000, but you oftentimes are owning the buildings through a group rather than on your own if you're doing it through real estate trusts or even mortgage lending or land lending. So there are definitely other ways to invest in real estate and get good returns without having to come up with such large amounts of capital. But at purchase, the large amounts of capital is pretty much what is expected, especially for around the GTA or Toronto. Now, someone said, what are affordable locations? Well, there are many affordable locations north, east, and west of Toronto. But I would say you'd have to go at least about an hour to maybe an hour and a half to start to see price points under 500,000, right? Because currently in the GTA and within an hour of the GTA, we are finding price points they're not coming under 500. Okay, so definitely if you're interested in learning more, we do often provide deals. Join our Facebook group. It gives you opportunities to hear of different opportunities that we get wind of and know of, and we can share that with you that way. What is the rate of return? So the rate of return it varies, but I've seen in some of the REITs that I'm in, I'm able to get, I would say 7% return. It all depends on what's going on in the market and what's happening. So, in the last year, despite COVID, we still have seen good returns on pretty much all real estate products outside of the condos. Okay. So I hope my question makes sense. Yes, it made sense. So you can, now besides REITs, mortgages, and land development, you can get double-digit returns. Those investments do provide 10% and greater in many products.
A little different too, though, because if you're starting out at small amounts, sometimes they aren't cash flowing immediately. You can cash flow, like there's the payout, but sometimes it's like you put your money away into it and it stays and it grows and it grows and it grows over time.
Yeah, the expectation is that just like all investments, you have to give your money for some period of time. It's not like you can offer the money today and 3 months later want it back and get that return. It's often they're asking for some required period of time in years, not in months.
Not in months, yes. Andrea, were you going to cover this one?
Sure. So I love this one. This really just shows you, like all investments, I would always encourage you to invest and diversify. And what we've done ourselves is we've diversified in the different types of real estate holdings that we have, from condos to apartment buildings to different locations. We are largely in Ontario, but across Ontario, so we're not all GTA. Like Kemba showed you a building out in London. We're also out in the West, in Alberta and BC. And so we really feel that it's important to diversify, to reduce your risk, because if you were all in condos and you were in Toronto, your real estate holdings and portfolio would be taking a really hard hit at current. And so that's just to show you. And we also use short-term and furnished rentals compared to long-term rentals to generate great cash flow. And we put that money, our leveraged money, to work as hard as we can and as far as we can.
And
So the other question, is there a minimum for REITs? They'll vary. And yes, many investments have a minimum requirement. There, oftentimes it's not going to be, I wouldn't even say that it's probably less than 1,000. I think would be, in many cases, it's 5,000 is the minimum,
it
depending
really
on who.
depends on the investment.
It depends on who.
Yeah.
Mortgages tend to be minimum of 50,000 to invest in them to get those double-digit returns. So yeah, there are minimums required.
So this is a little bit of a different take on capital. And when we think of investing, you know, we think of money, and it is a lot of money that you need to have or save or, you know, find strategies to bring investors together to buy, say, and when I say investors, it could be your mom and your cousin and yourself, the three of you bringing your capital together. But you have to really build relationships, and there's this Dr. Pamela Jolly has these theories of what is capital, and they're very true. We have human capital, so our money comes a lot of from our time. So our income is really an exchange of our time. And then once you get into real estate investing, it also becomes your tenant's time, because real estate investing is about, you know, you can't just buy these properties and they sit empty. You're filling them with tenants who will pay you. And so that is part of the value of investing in real estate. There's also social capital, and we talked a little bit about this in building your team, but you have to build a really strong team so that you can be successful. And you look at these forms of capital, and there's other forms of capital, but really in real estate investing, I believe the human and the social capital is very important to make sure that you're building those things to maintain success over time.
And I've already spoken to having a plan. I don't think we can ever say it too much. Even tonight, many of you plan to come here. I hope that you've been able to take some notes. We will leave you with some a valuable tool that you can take away as well. But really important to establish your plan, understand the risks that are involved in investing in real estate, and mitigate against those risks. Make sure that you understand the tax implications and make your investing as tax efficient as possible. Don't just grow your net worth, also grow your network. Like Kemba has highlighted many times, you need that solid team of individuals and experts that can guide you, because I don't think it's fair to expect that you can do it alone. Do your research, invest, don't speculate. If you're not sure and the product you're investing in the area or locale, you don't know enough about it, take the time, research it, and know enough that you go in with the right knowledge and decision-making to have a successful investment. You're not trying to, you know, wither away your money in a real estate, because not every real estate purchase is going to bring back the returns that we showed you in that graphic earlier over a 10-year period. Reinvest in yourself and your property. So there is a cost to learning and building your knowledge base that is required so that you can be successful investing in real estate and amassing, you know, large sums of money to build generational wealth for your family. Kemba?
Maintaining that property is critical, right?
And our services. So we've been doing this for some time. As I mentioned at the outset, we've been investing in real estate for a long time. We know that it's an excellent way to build wealth. And as we built our own portfolios, we started realizing that we can offer the services that these services as extensions of what we've been doing in our own portfolio for years. So we can help you with rentals, from tenanting your property, helping you get it tenanted, to setting it up if you need to generate the most possible cash flow using a short-term strategy or furnished rental, or if it's just that you want a long-term tenancy, we can establish that. We provide education, like seminars like this, for free, as well as we have memberships and coaching and podcasts. All tools to help you learn the necessary information to be successful in real estate investing. We provide consulting. We have built long-standing expert relationships with individuals that you need on your team to make you successful, and we can share those experts with you.
Mhm.
But now we'd like to share with you a member that we have developed a relationship with. They are on the call tonight, and that's Sunil and Nalini are just going to share their story of what they're doing to build themselves wealth for their sons. So Sunil, hopefully we didn't lose Sunil or
Neil,
Nalini.
you're on mute. They can't hear you.
Yeah, you maybe just have to unmute.
Yeah, there you go.
Awesome, thank you.
No problem. Well, we met Andrea first, later part of last year, and then she introduced us to Kemba, and we started their coaching um, with them at the beginning of this year to hopefully purchase a property by the end of this year. Our first, I guess, investment property, we will call it, or right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not familiar with the terms yet. Still
No, that's
new at
okay. You're
it,
learning.
right? So,
But
yeah.
you're
So
currently an owner of
yes,
your
we
own
are.
principal.
Correct. We currently own our own home right now, and hoping to take out of that. We've owned it for 15 years, 16 years now this year, and hopefully to take some of that equity in it to purchase our first rental or income property.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, with their mentorship and their coaching. I mean, so far everything we've learned a lot. It's in the last month. It's only been a month that we've been, talking with them, and we've learned a lot. Their Zoom meetings are informative. Like, you always come away with something from it. So happy to have joined them. So
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sunil, for joining us.
no, thank you guys. Like I said, this has been something I've been thinking about prior to COVID. Like, I mentioned to you when we first started talking that, I've have this ambition in me. I don't know what has come over me. Usually I'm not, I'm go lucky. I'll just move along with the path. And then it just hit me. It's like, I need to do something. I can't stay dormant. And
yeah,
fate had it that I met you guys. So,
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that we will accomplish that because, like you said, you have that desire, and you know that this is the time to, persevere and push forward to accomplish that.
Yep.
So thank you very much for joining us and
Nope.
sharing your story with the group tonight. And really, our goal is to help anyone that is interested in accomplishing either their first purchase or their first rental property. Some of us have already done both, and we're definitely able to help you do your first multi-unit or your first land purchase. Like, we've got a number of skill sets that we are able to help varying type of investors. We also have a giveaway that we're offering this month, and one of them is the coaching. So it's so relevant, and thank you, Sunil and Nalini, for joining us on that, because we're offering, at the end of the month, we'll be doing a draw to offer some coaching towards those winners, as well as for everyone that attends our sessions. We're offering a bonus starter guide that we know will be invaluable to some of you. It will answer some of the questions that you've been asking tonight, and maybe others that you haven't thought to ask. So that will be emailed to you as well. So thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight.
Hey, hello.
Yes,
I
Marcel?
just want, sorry, and I've been listening, and I'm trying not to interrupt or anything, but just one question, just in terms of investing. So I'm looking to purchase a rental unit. And you had mentioned, and there was one part, so I was waiting for it, and you had mentioned it, I'm not sure if it was you or your partner, but
okay,
had mentioned that there's somewhere where you guys list certain properties that you come across?
Yes. So oftentimes, like Sunil and Nalini, they've been fortunate to, in the last month, we've had a few opportunities come our way. We share it. We share it in our Facebook group, is what I said, and we offer email as well emailers of opportunities. So we try to build an email list because we get with realtors and mortgage brokers and varying investors that bring their investment opportunities to us first, and we like to
Okay.
share it with you and or others who might be interested in purchasing.
Should I just
So-
say thank you?
Yes, absolutely. We are going to share those opportunities with you. I mean, they're often phenomenal opportunities. Like someone asked in the chat earlier, is condos a great place to invest? And absolutely, condos are a great place to invest and a great opportunity right now.
Yes, there's lots
Okay.
of opportunity right now.
Yeah.
Do you
So-
are you guys focused in a certain area, or like in terms
Well-
of your the opportunities you're talking? Like, is it a certain area? I want to join the group, so I'm not sure how right now. How are you guys up on Facebook? Like at Keen?
Yes, we're Keen Club on Facebook.
Okay.
So if you
All right,
reach
perfect.
out to us, Marcel, we'll accept your invitation for sure.
Okay, thank you.
And yes, we don't restrict ourselves. I mean, initially I started right here in the GTA that was familiar, but I've seen so many more opportunities that come up, and they're further away from Brampton, Mississauga, Toronto, and so forth, and they're across the country. They're across Ontario, and we're open to those opportunities, whether they be in Aurelia or London or St.
Oh,
Catharines.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that works for me.
yes. Okay. So yeah, we're happy to share those.
Okay.
So
Thanks.
we're a little over time. We really appreciate everyone coming on. You know, as the last slide said, we want you to dream it, think it, and own it. Like, just get out there and get it done. Like, we understand that there are challenges, and every time somebody in every market people think of investing, there is a challenge. Oh, the prices are high. 10 years ago or maybe more than 10 years ago when I was starting to buy, I was like, wow, I don't know if I can do this. The prices are so high, and they will continue to be high for our
And they were like, I agree, Kim. I felt the same way when I first bought. I was like, oh my gosh, 300,000, 200,000. Like I used to worry about these numbers, and now I'm getting used to $1 million purchases.
Yeah, it's a matter of getting started, and you just have to figure out that plan. Think of what will work for you, what will work for your budget, how can you bring the money together. We always advocate, Andrea and I are family, our husbands, we all look at investing as it's a building wealth for the family. So if you don't have the capital all yourself, look to talk to your family about it, see how you guys can build wealth together and grow the generations to come. So we hope that this was helpful to you, and we hope it helps you and your family to build wealth in some way. Whether you work with us or you work with someone else or you get out there and you invest, we just want you to build a better future for yourselves and your family. So thank you for joining us.
Yes,
Thank you,
thank you
guys.
all very much for joining us. We totally appreciate your time tonight, and we hope that you got value from this.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you,
Good night.
everyone.
Good night. Good night,
Thank you.
everyone.
Marcia,
Yes,
I hope Marcia captured some of that for us, that questioning, because there was a lot of great
Yeah.
ones. Awesome. Yay.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you,
Guys.
everyone. Good night.
Bye.
Oh, I love the penguins.